the power of practice, though, and it's why I think we've got to be a little careful about this neutral language, because some things can't be neutral. You know, if you call the great example is you call the girl she or you call the girl he, and that is not neutral. There's no neutral ground. You're making a moral claim there. And there's this idea, it's lex orandi, lex credendi, the way that we worship, the way that we, and really...
You're French.
I know, it's classic Arabic. So the way that we worship affects the way that we believe. And so these people who have been just trained in these rituals of leftism, liberalism, whatever you want to call it, they're trained in it. They know that it's making them miserable. The practices that have defined their lives have ruined their lives. They'll even admit it in a way in the paper, but they can't change the belief. That is the power, because we are bodies in many ways. And so the things that we do every single day, our behaviors every day, are going to affect the way that we believe. It's why we don't always succeed when we rarely succeed, actually, when we make totally rational arguments for why our way is better than their way. It doesn't matter. They got to do it.
We also don't realize the tribal nature of some of this stuff. My favorite op-ed writer right now is this woman in the Times named Michelle Goldberg, because Michelle Goldberg is constantly discovering that everything she believes is wrong, and then by the end of the column saying, "Oh, but it's all true," you know. So she suddenly finds out that, like, maybe the sexual revolution wasn't such a good thing. But yeah, I'm not saying but it was great. You shouldn't. You know, the other day she wrote one of my favorite of her columns, which is "Art is now boring." That's absolutely true. We've hit an absolute low in the culture. In my lifetime, this is the lowest the culture has been because of woke, because their values aren't conducive to art, because they're not conducive to life. But she then starts quoting Karl Marx. You know, this is all explained, and I thought, like, yeah, okay, I know the rest of this column.
Oh yeah, no. My favorite recent piece in the New York Times. As long as we're doing favorite recent pieces in the New York Times, there's a woman who wrote this whole article about, I'm in a progressive marriage.
Yes.
It was an open marriage. And I was miserable.
Yes.
I was just miserable. It was the worst marriage ever. But that just demonstrates that progressive marriage is actually a wonderful, wonderful thing. And we need to get past the morality of the past.
Great.
And there's so much of this on the left. And that's why there's a study today that came out. And it's a study that every sentient human being knew was going to be true, which is that religious people have better sex.
Yeah,
right? There's a study that says religious people have better sex. Particularly women have a more meaningful sexual life when they are in a long-term relationship with a person who shares their values, which is the least shocking piece of news that has ever been broken upon the American people, ever. And it held true for men as well. Religious men tend to have better sex because it is in the context of a relationship that is actually fulfilling. And it turns out married people actually have a fair bit of sex because they actually know the person that they're having sex with. They do it fairly regularly, as it turns out. And
you don't have to go shopping for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so this entire study is written in the realm of almost like Jeff Corwin, like in Australia, and he's going around in the outback, like, why would... it's Steve Irwin, he's like, Crikey, what's these people? Yeah, bunnies, I can't believe it. And you're like, well, I mean, this makes perfect sense. Why do you think, even if you're not a religious person, let's assume that you have a naturalistic explanation for religion. Okay, then why do you think these religious rituals began in the first place? And the answer is they're outgrowths of evolutionary biology, even if you're an atheist. Because human beings are naturally driven toward a life of meaning. Women are naturally driven toward mating with people who are very specific so they can propagate their line with not the schmo down the block. And men tend to be driven toward polygamy, but if they are forced by circumstance, and namely by women, into monogamy, they tend to lead healthier sex lives than people who are just out screwing whatever is available.
Yeah, but that's part of the trade-off.
Right. This is right. And so, the fact that we keep, there's so many, Christine Emba at the Washington Post, she keeps writing pieces about like, well, you know, it seems like the consent values that we've been promoting my entire lifetime, they're not sufficient. There's so many women who are consenting and then they regret, and is really consent enough? And it's like, where have you been? Where have you been? Can I recommend this thing? It rhymes with marriage. We've had it for literally forever. And it's just...
I don't want to tell a tale out of school, but my friends and I, some male friends and I, back in my wayward youth, we were discussing this one day, and we had this kind of epiphany. We said, you know, fellas, I just thought about this the other day. I think sex actually is better with people that you know. And furthermore, it's even better with people that you like. And we're sitting there like, wow, and I'm being somewhat, hyperbolic here, but those are the exact words we said. And we thought about that like an actual epiphany. And then we thought, maybe every person ever throughout history knew this except for us.
No,
like
no,
maybe
this
we're
is the
This
battle.
was the hinge of my life. This was the hinge of my life. I was walking down the street one day and I said, you know what? I'm not sleeping with women I don't like anymore. I'm not going to pretend to like women I don't like. Within 6 months, I met the woman who became my wife. First of all, within 6 months, I was having the greatest dating experiences of my life because I just thought, I'm not going out with women
like these
I don't like. You know, yeah. And then within 6 months, I met the woman.
It's not just that you like the person too. It's also you're having sex with someone, and you can embrace the totality of the act and all of its consequences, and see those things not as this thing that must be feared, but as a great blessing. So that's another part that allows us to enjoy it quite a bit more.
This is the thing about you mentioned the flesh and the spirit a little bit ago. You mentioned, certain people have genetic predispositions towards being overweight, and other people have eating disorders, and et cetera, et cetera. All of this is sort of one thing, which is that in the battle between flesh and spirit, you're being fed two ideas all the time. And the one idea is always a lie. And so it's like the fear of your spirit is a lie, and the promise of joy of the flesh is a lie. And so I've talked to, because we've never had an obese society before until right now. Yeah. Like you look at pictures from the beach in 1968, no one was overweight. And when I mean not overweight, people who we think of as not overweight now would have been considered overweight then.
They didn't have seed oils. That's why.
Yeah, that's right. It's not even that they were.
Side note, by the way, have you noticed that the sizes are changing? I'm talking about like clothing sizes.
Oh, yeah.
They're changing. Like, it's bizarre. Over the course of my lifetime, okay? Like, I'm 5'9", and I weigh about 160, which puts me normally in the medium category. And now I'm having to wear smalls because the mediums are for giants.
Right. They're for giants.
I thought I was losing weight.